So let's see if we can locate some bones. And if you've seen my the equivalent tutorial on the muscles, you know, I really want you to focus on the spelling of these bones. Okay, I think that's really important to try and get right in this particular resource. Okay, or the thing that you're working on for your assignment in terms of the leaflet that you're likely to be producing. Now, I'm going to sort of work to an extent from kind of top to bottom down the skeleton here. And again, can I stress to you there are many other bone names. And I'm going to use some generic terms in certain places. There's a lot more detail that you can study in the future if you want to. And again, it's a very, very fascinating thing. But here, let's get started. I want to first of all talk to you about the old brain bonds, the old cat brains cap thing up here. This is described as your skull, of course, but we want to refer to it as your cranium. Can I stress that your cranium does not include this muscle here, which is the jaw muscle. It's called the mandible. We don't really learn about it, but the cranium is not included in the jawbone, so just be aware of that. Secondly, I want to introduce you to the clavicle. Let me see if I can sketch it in for you. This clavicle is this bone here and this bone here. You might know them as your collarbone. From now on, I want you to refer to them as your clavicle. I'm going to have a guess that someone watching this tutorial has broken their clavicle from a heavy fall in sport at some point. It's if you like, it's the very top layer of kind of our chest cavity. It's the final bit before our neck and our head. So there's our clavicle. Thirdly, a word that I found for a long time students get confused about is scapula, and scapula is this bone here. Okay, this is your scapula. You might refer to it currently as your shoulder blade. Of course, the scapula connects or articulates with your upper arm bone, your humerus, to form the shoulder joint, but this is your scapula. Next, I want to talk to you about your ribs. I'm going to show you on the side view. Here's a rib here, here's a rib here, here's a rib. And you can actually number these from 1 down to, how many are there again? I've forgotten how many ribs there are. You can number them as you go down, but look, here's rib 1, for example, and you can number them as we go. These are the ribs. They're there to protect the heart and the lungs, of course. They surround the chest cavity, the thoracic cavity. The bone at the very center of our breast is this bone here. It kind of looks a bit like a tie. It's down here, and this is called your sternum. Okay, I should have maybe made this image a touch bigger, but this is called your sternum. Your breastplate, your breastbone is your sternum, a lovely one for you to include. Now, I've mentioned this one already in this tutorial. This bone here, or here on the side view, this is called your humerus. What a funny word that is. So it's your humerus, no O before the U, your humerus. This is an E in here, by the way. I haven't written it very well. Humerus. This is your upper arm bone. It articulates or connects with both the shoulder and the elbow, okay? So forms two really, really important joints. We also want to know about your radius, okay? Your radius. Now, your radius is your forearm bone, but it is the one that's on the thumb side of your hand. This is your radius. And its little mate right next to it is called your ulna. So let me do this in a different colour. Let me do this in a red colour. This bone on this side here, this is called your ulna. Your ulnar bone. So radius and ulna are often named together because obviously they sit right next to each other, the radius and the ulnar bone. Okay, radius is on the thumb side, ulnar is on the pinky side. So if you look at your hand face up looking at you, the bone which is in your forearm on the pinky side is your ulna, the bone on the thumb side is your radius. Lovely. Let's also talk about your pelvis. Okay, the pelvis is here. Now, the pelvis is made up of multiple bones, by the way. The pubis, the ischium. I'm not going to get into it in this case, the ilium. But this is your pelvis, and it's a collective name for this bone. Again, a super important bone. It protects the reproductive organs. It also articulates or joins to form the hip with the femur. So a really, really important flat bone that forms that. But just note again, this is a collective term for a bone. There's multiple bones that make that up. Let's go a touch further. We're also interested in this bone here. This bone, okay, this one here, or if I draw it on the side, look how bent it is. People don't realise sort of the exact shape of this. This is actually your femur bone, longest bone in the body, of course. Your thigh bone, very solid, very stable. It's actually quite hollow, interestingly. Produces a lot of blood cells within the bone marrow. Did you know that? It doesn't matter for this course, just sharing, but that's there. I also want to bring your attention to the patella. These little kneecap bones here, these are your patella. or patellas. There's your patella. I'm just going to name one of them, the patella, just there, but patellas obviously is fine for 2. And I'm also now going to bring you to the tibia. Now, with the tibia bone, notice with the tibia, with the lower leg, there are 2 bones of the lower leg. So this bone here is the tibia. You can also see it's this bone here. If I go on the side, it's this bone here. Okay, this is your tibia. And that sits right next to a second bone, really close to it, which is called the fibula. The fibula, and the fibula bone sits alongside the tibia and sort of goes down there. If you look here, you can just see it on the side going down, 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 down. That's your fibula bone. So guys, re-emphasize this. Your spelling's really important when you make your leaflet or your documentation that you're going to submit for your assignment. Really focus on the bones that I've just shared with you. Try and label them really, really accurately. And more than anything, maybe realize that the human skeleton and skeletal structures in general are a fascinating topic for research and learning. And it might be something you want to take even further in the future. I would certainly encourage you to do so. Cheers.